All right, we are here today with Scooter McIntosh. Man, thanks so much for coming in and being part of our class today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So you got out of college and went to work for a mattress firm. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, and what did you do for them?
For mattress firm, I helped start the events and expositions department. So State Fair of Texas is probably the biggest and most notable event that we did. And annually, that would go for 24 days every year in September and October, and would generate close to $20 million in revenue for the company over those. Essentially, it was the largest store in the company for the entire year in 1 month.
Okay, and so you did, and so basically you worked in the kind of the promo there, and then you went to work as the franchise sales director for Dickey's Barbecue, correct?
Correct. Yep.
How did that like from mattresses to brisket? How does that work?
Yeah, so not as much from the material side of mattresses to barbecue. It was more of just the business acumen that helped me, be able to transition in a role like that at a certain level when you get into the business world, whether it's a paperweight or whether it's college athletics, for instance. The same skills are required, and that discipline, hard work, and understanding of what you're doing, whether it's on the logistics side, whether it is selling franchises, for instance. There's still a few key things that you need to understand, and that's how to generate the profit and what the customer at this point, the franchisee, the person that's interested in starting their own business, what things they are going to be interested in, and how can you get them that information.
And so as far as the within Dickey's, what would be the sales strategy like what would you say to someone who was wanting to open up, I'm Simpson, so why don't I just open up Simpson's Barbecue in Trophy Club and try to be profitable? What would be the advantage of opening Dickey's Barbecue instead?
Yeah, and there are people that do successful startup barbecues, if you will, and the things that they find are what you buy into a franchise for. So they have a successful brand. I'm sure everyone here locally, because they are based in Dallas, Fort Worth, that you've seen the logo, you've probably heard the story, family owned. And what the advantages are of buying into that is you get the marketing dollars. So every franchisee, as you're prospecting and doing your due diligence, you have to get what's called a franchise disclosure document. And in this particular case, this was 288 pages from Dickey's. Wow. You update it every year. You have to register with states, and that really provides the interested prospect all the information that you would want a business. They have to publish it in there. So everything from an earnings claim, which is an item 19, where you can flip through that and go in and see an average store makes X amount of dollars. A top store makes this. Here's this market. What stores have closed? So it's essentially I remember back in school, our math books used to have all the answers to the odd numbers on the back of the back 20 pages or whatnot. Right. So it is essentially your answer key to what this business can do if you put in the sweat effort and you're a smart business mind and you want to roll up your sleeves and get in the thick of it. And then it also has the people that are just dumping money into it and aren't really connected and are relying on other people to run their business. That'll be the low end of what the earnings are. But Dickey's, like with a lot of franchises, it is a economy of scale. And what I mean by that is your successful business owners will have multiple units so that they can have and layer their business with managers running multiple sites, cutting a lot of those core costs that help improve your revenue.
So let's say I wanted to open up a Dickey's let's say there wasn't one in Keller and I wanted to open one in Keller. What would be my potential starting costs? What would be my franchise fee back to Dickey's? And what would be my anticipated revenue?
Yeah, and those are all the things that are in the FDD, and those are great questions. And a lot of prospects need to know that information. You'd be making a very uneducated play with your money if you didn't ask those questions and have that information. So the distinct advantage of the franchise is, say we do pick Keller, right? Well, if you were just to go do it on your own, you're going to have to try to find a site, understand what kind of equipment you need in the kitchen, what Dickies does, and all franchises that you buy into, they have a system laid out. You buy this kind of a location.
Okay.
Your startup costs based off of square footage range from the low 300s to the high $400,000. They help connect you with approved lenders for those SBA loans,
Okay.
which is a lot
SBA loan
harder.
is Small Business Association, Small Business Administration, correct?
Correct. Yep. And
So
you know,
Dickies helps you, like when you get the location, they also help you with the SBA to get that loan approved, to get the facility and everything up and running, correct?
yes. So they help connect you with it. Legally, they can't say, oh, well, Scooter McIntosh needs to get approved for this loan. It ultimately comes down to what kind of assets I have, both from a liquid perspective, and what I'm willing to put down into the loan. So not everyone gets approved, but that's part of my job as a franchise sales director, to qualify the prospect and let them know, here's the next handful of steps that are going to go through. Do you have any issues with that? We do them fill out a financial statement that
Okay.
we send over to our finance analysts, so that they know, yes, this person's more than likely going to get approved. We don't run credit checks at that point, because it's just they're doing their homework, we're doing our homework to make sure that it's going to be a good fit. And then when you're picking a site, Keller is a big town. There's a lot of areas to go.
Right.
Franchises will ultimately have someone that's in charge of the real estate. So they're working closely. They've got boots on the ground, whether it's a CBRE or whether it's somebody else locally in the market that's doing traffic counts, that's doing household incomes, to help identify what's going to be what you would call an A location, a B location, or a C location, so
Okay.
that you're not just going at it alone. That's another advantage of franchises. They've got 500 plus stores, and they can look at it and say, we need this many cars per day, we need this kind of a household income, we need this many people within a 5 or 10 mile radius.
Wow, there's like a math problem that's solved by how many cars, by what the household income is, to like how much brisket you're going to sell in a year.
Correct. Yep. And you can do that with every restaurant, from the Chick-fil-A's of the world, which they do it phenomenally well.
Yeah.
You'll notice they don't put them on opposing corners or anything like that. They've got a really sophisticated plan, and that's kind of the uniqueness that you don't understand before you get into the big business franchising side of it. Is every step along the way, there's somebody that's figuring it out and working to improve the technology, going to those local markets. Hey, what's helping from a marketing perspective? What are you seeing? Is there construction like what we're seeing here in the Metroplex for a certain area where they maybe need to close down the store, do some renovations, that sort, so that they're not losing money?
So on average, what would you say, like the total all in, my cost all in to go from start to open the doors to sell my first plate of brisket? What's my cost?
Yeah. So your franchise fee will range as, the fee that you would pay the company up front ranges between 15 to 25,000.
Okay.
And then all of your upfront costs in cash, you'll typically see somewhere, the banks will want to see about a 20% deposit. So it ranges from, call it 80 to 150,000 on the high side in cash up front. And then your SBA loans are typically structured for a 7 to 10 year payback. And those interest, I haven't looked at them here in the last 90 days and they change, but somewhere between high 6s and low 9s.
Okay. So you could get into a Dickie's barbecue with an SBA loan and $20,000 out of pocket. Is that right?
If you would do what would call a non-traditional, yes.
Okay.
So the franchise fee, sometimes people will put it on an American Express to get the travel points versus, giving us a check, that type of thing, which is a smart business move. I've gotten multiple vacations for free from just using those types of, of point systems that are available. So, and these are what would be called a lower barrier to entry or a lower startup fee. There's great websites like Franchise Gator, Franchise Opportunities, where you can really shop and see, well, what's out there if I want to invest less than 50K, less than 100K. And then you can kind of pick, very few people get into the Dickie's barbecue franchise because they're just barbecue enthusiasts. A lot of them, I worked with a couple of NFL football players at my time, and they could care less about barbecue, but they wanted something that was scalable, that wasn't in their area, and a
Right.
well-known name.
So, we open up this store. What's going to be my average growth? What would you anticipate gross revenue for Keller location? Let's say it was on 1709 near Keller Smithfield, some sort of like ideal location.
Yeah, and a lot of that does come down to, as long as you follow the process, meaning you're doing 1 scoop of mac and cheese instead of 2. In restaurants, it's a little bit different than a lot of franchises. A lot of your money will go out the restaurant in the back door via a trash bag, because you're wasting a lot of your material. That's why this system, everything is portion control. So you do this, 1 scoop of mac and cheese, 1 scoop of baked beans, and everything can be scalable. That way you're not putting a new brisket on. And I mean, if anyone shop for a brisket now, you can see they're over $100 for 1 brisket. So that's a lot of money to overcook.
Right.
And all of those 500 plus stores have all opened up. So they've got historical information that you cook 3 briskets your first day, and then 2 briskets your second day, and so on and so forth. So that really helps control that spend, where you or I, if we were just doing it on our own, we could be spending a lot of money. From an annual perspective, depending on how many layers of management or how committed you are to the process, if it was you or I and we were in there running it 40 plus hours a week and not paying ourselves anything, versus the owner that's going to be removed and have 2 people that's trying to do the role of that. So that an average, after everything, if you guys deal in EBITDA, after everything's done, you're looking 15 to 20% of total top line sales for your EBITDA contribution at the end of the day. And that could fluctuate from as small as 50 grand to the successful ones will do upwards of 250 to 300,000 in profit.
In profit. Wow. Okay. So 50 grand in profit up to potentially 250 to 300 grand in profit. Wow. That's incredible. So as a franchise sales director, did you commission off of every person who added a store? If so, then what was that commission?
Yeah, so the commission structure was done on a monthly basis. So it was how many qualified prospects I got through the pipeline and franchise documents sold. Okay. And then at that point, then I transition it over to the real estate team, to the finance team, and I no longer deal with a prospect at that point.
Okay.
So I get paid for closing the sale and walking them through doing their entire paperwork process, which is a lot of paperwork. Luckily, a lot of it's on DocuSign, so you don't have to physically write your name down a bunch.
So you're just getting people into that funnel. Then the more people you get into that funnel, the more qualified applicants, and then also those who do finally close. You get commission from the funnel and from the closing.
Yeah. So I had a team that would range from 6 to 8 people that were each of them making somewhere between 80 to 100 cold calls a day.
Okay.
And then after they get an application back, I review it, then I call the prospect and move them through the sales funnel. And that cycle can be 60 to 90 days from once you get an application till you disclose them with the FDD.
Yeah.
There's a waiting period. So say you just inherited a bunch of money and you're like, I've got to invest it right away. There's a minimum waiting period of 2 weeks. So from the time that you get the document to when you can legally sign that franchise, it's to protect you from hurrying up, getting your money in something and you're not doing your homework.
Gotcha. Okay. So you work for Dickies for 2 years, and then you go and you launch your own mattress company, correct?
Yes.
And you are now in the process, and this is the bed farm, and it's at Tanger Outlets, and 35 and 114 near their Speedway, right? Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. And so
yes, sir.
You're now trying to potentially franchise your own mattress store to be a competitor to, like, Mattress Firm or those other ones, correct? What's that process like?
Yeah, so the process, the hardest part is getting your historical information out there. So, we opened this, during the pandemic. I had, our business was just trade shows. So what I was used to at Mattress Firm and going out and doing the different state fairs across the country. We were actually up in Tulsa this time 2 years ago when everything started, and we were in one of our best shows, and then this happened, and that trade show environment really disappeared.
Okay.
So that was a unique challenge for us. And so it had a lot of thinking and time to say, hey, what do we want to do as a family and business? How do we want to evolve this? And so that's where Tanger came into play, the open air, open environment, which was, for lack of a better term, COVID resistant, because we're not in a big mall like Pine Mills, and it is outdoors, and then people choose to come into your store. And so, the first aspect of franchising is I need to have statistical information so I can show, here's what you anticipate for sales, here's how much I'm investing every month in marketing, here's the return, here's how I do delivery. So I've got to catalog all of this information and then take it over to the franchise attorneys and say, hey, here's what my concept is, here's how I want to do it, and here's my, my 30,000 foot view of what we want to do across the country.
Okay. And so let's say I wanted to open one of these in Plano, and it's a good market. It's near, the Bush Turnpike and Kuwait or something, some sort of good location. What would be my anticipated investment in to open one of these stores? And what are the royalties that would be paid back to you?
Yep. So the uniqueness of this model is it's not just a mattress store. Anyone could go out and open up a mattress store. The kind of the idea and philosophy behind this is I've got strategic partnerships with the Tempur-Pedics of the world, the Simmons Beauty Rest, and what the franchise model will include is net 30 to net 90-day payment structure. Even with, if you were to come in and purchase a bed, I don't purchase that product until you've already come into the store, selected it, paid for it, and then I order it from the manufacturer. So we try to operate. Yeah, we try to operate completely negative the entire time. So we're not sitting there buying a bunch of inventory and force feeding it to customers like a lot of the box stores will do. So it really cuts down what our startup costs would be. Okay. We get, for our floor models, we get a discount because the manufacturers want to help us out and help push their product. So typically they'll give us half cost of what it normally is. So if a bed costs me $500, they'll sell it to us for our floor model for $250 and still give us extended terms on it. So startup cost, depending on your square footage, my store in Tanger is 2,500 square foot, 2,200 of that is showroom. And then the back is, fridge and microwave for the employees and restroom and everything. So our startup cost was just short of $60K for all of the floor samples and all of the labor and the drivers to get everything set up. We also, we sell saunas because me and my wife are launching a separate company called the Spa Farm, where we do hot tubs and saunas.
Man,
and
that looks cool. I don't know where I'd put this in my house. Maybe in the backyard near Harmony Park there or something. I don't know. Yeah, it looks pretty cool though.
And so that's been a shipping issue just with everything that's happening globally the last 2 years. So we've kind of put it on pause for now. Right. But so 60 to 80K, depending on, the bigger showroom that you have, the more the cost is. And some vendors like Tempur-Pedic actually extended our terms to 180 days. Okay. So that, and then your rent, your typical rent, you'll see somewhere between $15 to $25 a square foot. And so from an annual perspective, you're looking 50 to 70 grand in rent overall. Okay. Now a typical store and some of the things that'll be in our FDD when we release it is, your sales will range from slower stores, you'll get 30 to 35,000 a month in sales. And typically margins in this business can range from your low 50s to high 60s on product. Furniture, like couches and stuff, is even higher end, where your margins can get into the 70s. But pretty standard, you can calculate it in a 50, and that's paying your commissions to your salespeople and everything along those lines.
Man, I love the idea that you don't have to hold all these mattresses at your store. Like, you literally can just have a showroom, show it, and then they get launched or they get shipped from somewhere else. And so really, You know, but boy, at $50,000 potentially in rent and then employees, you got to be moving a lot of mattresses. How many mattresses would you say you have to sell in a month to make it profitable?
Yeah, so we aim for one mattress sale a day during the week
Okay.
and 5 on the weekend. So you know, in terms of dollars and cents, the unique thing about my model is that I'm not buying a bunch of inventory. So every month I don't have to force feed consumers one bed at
Right.
one set margin and really try to blow that inventory out.
Yeah.
So our total operating each month, our operating cost is just shy of 10 grand, including our rent.
Okay. Wow.
And so the unique thing about this model is that at $20,000 at an assumed 50 margin, we've covered all of our costs.
Man.
So yeah. So if
That's
your
awesome.
average bed, yeah. So if your average bed sale was $1,000, you would need less than one a day to
Okay.
get in there.
Man.
And you know,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm kind of a spreadsheet guru or nerd, if you will, where my wife and I will sit there and do a spreadsheet. So we calculate down to a seasonality of each day and what percent of the sale that is, whether it's you know, one day we have 18 grand in sales and that's going to turn out to be 47% of our monthly budget. And we really
Right.
track it that way on spreadsheets. And technology is at a point where I could be in, you know, in Oregon and watching a football game and see a sale happen and I track it on my phone using Google Drive or any of the other apps that I have for our business.
Right. Well, Scooter man, I appreciate all this information, man. This has been fantastic. Thanks so much for coming in and talking to my class.
Oh yeah, it was a treat. I love entrepreneurship and seeing that there's a whole generation of kids that are getting ready to get into that world and they're excited about it.